Okay, so I suspect that many of you read the FRBR article and are still confused. So I'm going to attempt to give you a simplified explanation of FRBR. So what is FRBR? According to Unbury-It, FRBR is the functional requirements for bibliographic records. This is not the same as Edna Ferber, but there may be crying when speaking of both. So what is it really? FRBR is a conceptual model. A what, you might be thinking? A conceptual model means that it's theoretical. It's a way of thinking rather than a method or something that can be implemented. FRBR is not new cataloging rules, so it's not something that's going to replace AACR2, and it is not a cataloging standard, so it's not something that's going to replace MARC. It's simply a new way of thinking about the world of books. The best way to attack this is through an example. If you look up Hamlet in the Mayville State Library catalog, you will find 4 books by William Shakespeare, 1 book by Harold Bloom, 1 book by William Faulkner, 3 movies, 4 books of literary criticism, 3 books of theater interpretations, and 2 books based on Hamlet. Now, when you pull up these results, they aren't neatly organized into wonderful categories. In fact, one of the versions of Hamlet the play isn't even on the main page of results. You're probably saying, so what? Let me explain. There are all these different resources, but they're all related. What FRBR aims to do is to find a way to make those relationships clearer. So look at this diagram. It's not Hamlet, but the same idea. So FRBR tries to separate out these relationships on multiple levels. So to begin with, what we're going to do is just take 1 copy of Wuthering Heights and parse it out. So Emily Bronte is cruising along on her merry way when she comes up with this idea for a book. I'm guessing she was in the moor and it was damp. That is the work. It's the story, the meat of it. She goes home and writes it down. That's the expression. The actual written story, the words that she wrote, is the expression. A publisher buys it and assigns it an ISBN. That is the manifestation. The Penguin edition published in 1992, that's the manifestation. The book that I have in my hands, though, the very physical item that I can see and touch and smell, that is the item. So it's just a way of thinking about how books exist in the world. Let's look at another diagram in simpler English. So here's the same diagram with words that make a little more sense to us. So think of it like this. The work is akin to the story embodied in Wuthering Heights. It was originally published as a novel, so that's like the expression, and each new edition is a new manifestation. And the one I have in my hand is a paperback book, so the item. So it is just a way of thinking of how the books exist in the world. But these things aren't separate ideas that live side by side. You don't look out into the bibliographic universe and say, oh, there's a work, and there's the manifestation, and there's the item. They exist within each other. So the item of Wuthering Heights is a copy of the manifestation, which contains the expression, which tells the story or the work. So this diagram, it's a good visualization of the idea. But where it gets really complicated is when you think about this 1 copy of Wuthering Heights next to other copies of Wuthering Heights or books about Wuthering Heights. So this should look familiar to you. This is the diagram from the reading, and I swiped it. So this diagram can help you determine the relationship between 2 different books. So a little background before I expound upon the wonder that is this diagram. FRBR is intended to help everyone think about the bibliographic universe. So what librarians interested in FRBR are really interested in is this relationship between books. Okay? So think of it as a little like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. And we'll see that coming up. We all have the different books that come up when we search for Hamlet. how they are related to Shakespeare's work of Hamlet, the play. So on the far left side of the diagram, we have equivalent works. So different copies of Hamlet that are in that category. Anything that comes up in our search that is a play called Hamlet, authored by Shakespeare, with Shakespeare's original words in it. A microform copy of the play also falls into this category. It's the same work and the same expression. So just a note here too, this diagram only deals with work and expression level. It doesn't deal with manifestation and item level. Those are a little bit pickier. If you think each new edition is a new manifestation and all the different publishers are new manifestation, that's just getting into lots of different territory. So moving to the right, we see that the left-hand side of the orange box shows examples of derivative works, different editions, Hamlet with illustrations, a translation of Hamlet into different language, an abridged version. These all represent the same work, Shakespeare's Hamlet, but they are now a different expression, a new expression. It isn't the exact words of Shakespeare. It's different words expressing the same idea. So the dotted line in the middle represents the cataloging rules cutoff point. So this is where the rules say that the resources listed on the right-hand side of the dotted line are new works. So summaries, novelizations, parodies, and adaptations are new works. They're no longer tied closely enough to the work of Hamlet by Shakespeare to be considered the same work. They're different enough to represent a new work, even though they're derivative of Hamlet. In the far right-hand box, you see examples of descriptive works, new works that describe other works. So reviews, criticisms, commentary, these are also new works, new expressions. Whew, take a deep breath. That's a lot to take in all at once. You may be asking, so what, Andrea? We're not cataloging theorists. Why do we need to know? Let me tell you. Many of the people designing catalogs today are taking this conceptual model into account. They want to make it easier for patrons to do a simple search for Hamlet and find all of the works of Hamlet right away, and then find derivative works instead of everything with the word Hamlet all showing up willy-nilly. So, and also, when and if the cataloging rules ever change, AACR2, it's highly likely that they'll be influenced by this conceptual model. RDA was definitely influenced by this conceptual model. So the best real-life example that's available today is LibraryThing. We looked at LibraryThing for the tags a few weeks ago, but LibraryThing has developed its catalog around FRBR. You see in the green box that this record for Hamlet gives an option for work details. This is a work-level record for Hamlet. So it's got a link further down to different editions, different manifestations or expressions of Hamlet. Further down on the Hamlet work page, you can see other works that are related to Hamlet. Work-to-work relationships. You see works that contain Hamlet, works that are retellings, adaptations, parodies, criticisms. So these are works that are derivative, but also new works. So these are going to be those ones in that orange box on the right-hand side of the dotted line. This is really the end goal of FRBR, this right here, a catalog that contains all manifestations under one main work and is directly linked to related work records. So don't worry if you don't understand this perfectly. I mean, I have a pretty good grasp on it, but I still get confused from time to time. So I just wanted you to introduce it, get a little bit to think about, a little bit to discuss, and especially since this cataloging world that we're in is kind of on the brink of some big major changes, and FRBR is going to be a major player in those changes.